Hello and welcome to Behind the Counter Pharmacy and Beyond. I'm your host, Solomon Abuede. And in this episode, we're diving into the truth about running a business, the parts no one talks about, the sacrifices, the struggles, and the reality beyond the success stories. But before we get into it, I just want to take a moment to say a huge thank you. The support from everyone has been incredible. Your messages, your shares, your feedback, it's what keeps me going and it reminds me why I started this podcast in the first place. So thank you to everyone. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Make sure you go back and listen to the previous episodes. They lay the foundation for everything we're talking about in this episode. And while you're here, don't forget to follow, share, and leave a comment. Now and again over the years, people have asked me all sorts of questions about what it's really like to run a business. But two questions always stand out. One, how did you imagine business ownership before you started? And the second question I get asked a lot is, what did you think it would feel like versus the reality? So whatever I'd imagined and whatever the imaginations I had about what running a business would be like, did it match up to the reality? Those are fascinating questions, and the truth is, the answer to those questions would change depending on the journey, where you are in your business journey, and even where you are personally in life. If you asked me that question at the very beginning, I would give you a totally different answer to what I would today. So, if you were asking me that question right now, this is what I would say. In terms of what I expected and what I'd imagined, from the very beginning, we had massive visions, and that vision still drives us today. We didn't start the business for money. We started it because we saw an opportunity to create something that truly served people and made a difference in their daily lives. As pharmacists, we do way more than just dispense medicine. And for us, we'd imagined being part of a community. I'd imagined running a pharmacy brand that people could trust, and one that went beyond just being a place to pick up your prescriptions. I'd imagine Midway Pharmacy as a brand to be a place where customers felt heard, cared for, and supported. A place where every single patient knew that their health mattered. And in fact, that became our official tagline: Your health matters. That is more than just a slogan to us. It's how we run our business every single day. I'd also imagined building something that would stand the test of time, something that would be here for a long time, for the long haul. I didn't want to just open a business. I wanted to build a legacy, something that future generations could look back on with pride. While that is possible and completely achievable, it's something that takes years of hard work, sacrifices, and consistency. Like many entrepreneurs, I believed that running my own business would give me freedom, that I would have loads of freedom over my time. I thought to myself, finally, I can have some flexibility for family and life. But that was all what I'd imagined. How did they match up to reality? Well, of course, reality hit me differently and very quickly. That freedom to start with, that every entrepreneur, every person chases, it doesn't come immediately, even if it ever comes at all. It has to be built. And the hard truth is, some entrepreneurs never even get there. For most of us, running a business means you have less freedom than you ever had before. And certainly, you have a lot less time. And instead of working for your own boss in a 9 to 5, what you find with running a business is you're now working for everyone. Your customers, your staff, your suppliers, even your landlord. Sooner or later, everyone comes to the realization that things will not turn out the way you had imagined it. Every entrepreneur gets there in the end. When we all get there, when we come to that realization, really does depend on your journey. Some people figure it out from day one, like I did. For me, I knew this was going to be a very tough road on our very first day of trading. We were open for 16 hours and we dispensed just one prescription item. That was one prescription item for an entire day's work. That's when I knew that this was not going to be an easy ride. It was going to be far from it. I also realized very quickly that any rewards or benefits that was going to come from this business was not going to come quickly. It was never going to come overnight. We're building something for the future, even if it means struggling in the present. To come to that realization is very, very crucial in starting a business, or if you've got big visions like we do of building something that would last generations effectively. One of my first harsh reality moments came just before the first set of bills were due to be paid. I remember staying up all night, staring at numbers. I couldn't sleep because I knew we didn't have enough money in the account to cover expenses for the bills that were due in the next couple of days. That next morning, I had to rush to the bank. The newly approved personal loan, which I spoke about in the last episode, had hit my bank account and I needed to transfer it from my personal account to the business account. And yes, I know that I've just talked about going to the bank to transfer money. This was back in 2011, which feels like forever ago now. Of course, in today's world, I could have achieved all of that from the comfort of my mobile phone. Up until that point in my life, I had never felt that level of responsibility for anything. This was me staying up all night, worrying about the bills that were due to be paid. That moment changed everything for me. It was no longer just a business. This was now my entire life, my entire life's work. There was no clocking out at 5 p.m. The success or failure of this business rested squarely on my shoulders. That was a lot of pressure. Running a business is not for the faint-hearted, as they say. And if you have ever run a business, I'm sure you will agree with that statement 100%. Here is a quick tip for anyone looking to start a business. Before getting into it, you must ask yourself the why. Why are you starting a business instead of keeping your 9 to 5? What's your why? Is it the freedom? Is it the impact that you're going to have? Is it a legacy? Whatever it is that your why is, you must be honest with yourself. Because when the tough days come, your why is what will keep you going. And if you don't know that why before you start off, things can get really difficult. If you've ever run a business, you'll know exactly what I mean. If you haven't yet, I hope this gives you some insight into the reality of entrepreneurship. But this is just the start. The sacrifices don't just stop with a business owner. Your partner, your children, and even your extended family and friends will all be impacted, because the truth is, when you run a business, you're not the only one making sacrifices. It's going to impact everyone and everything around you. Let's talk about some of the sacrifices that have been made over the years, and not just by myself, but also by my family and friends. When I look back, some of the biggest sacrifices I made and still make would include giving up time, giving up money, and that mental load that comes with running a business. At the start, I was working 95 hours a week, every single day, Monday to Sunday, no breaks. It wasn't just a job, it was my entire life. Even when I wasn't physically working, my mind was still consumed by it. There was always something that needed to be done, and there never seemed to be enough time to do it. And then there was a financial sacrifice. For the first 2 years, we didn't take a single penny out of the business. No salary, nothing. We effectively worked for free. We had to completely adjust our personal lives to survive on a reduced income. Even after those 2 years, when we finally started paying ourselves, it was the bare minimum, just enough to cover our mortgage, fuel the cars, and put food on the table. That was all we took. Eventually, I decided to leave my well-paying job to focus on the business full-time, which was not an easy decision to make. I kept telling myself that the business can't afford to pay me what I was earning at my other job. And for a while, that held me back because it took a while for me to get my head around that concept. But what I eventually realized, and this was a game changer at the time, was that I didn't need to pay myself what I had been earning at my other job. We just needed enough to survive, enough to keep things running at home. So after 2 years of earning nothing, we finally started paying ourselves. And then there's what I call the mental sacrifice, and this is the bit that it's really difficult to explain and people don't quite see. It's that weight of responsibility that never really leaves you as a business owner. You carry it everywhere you go. Even when you're home and when you're on holiday, it's there. And as the business grows, unfortunately, that weight grows with it. To be honest, running your own business can be a very lonely experience. In our own case, we've been incredibly lucky. We've had an amazing support system from day one, and I'm extremely grateful for that. But even with all the love and support, you will still find yourself in a lonely place sometimes, lost in the worries, the stress, the difficult reality of keeping a business alive. For me, these moments come a handful of times a year where everything just feels overwhelming. What I've learned over the years is that protecting your mental health is absolutely crucial when running a business. If your mind is clogged with stress and anxiety, you won't be able to make good decisions and everything else will suffer. That's why I've made it priority to take 1 or 2 days in a year where I completely disconnect. No phones, no emails, no work, just 24 hours off the grid, literally. Those moments are vital. They help me reset. I regain focus and I come back stronger. If you're constantly running on empty, you can't sustain yourself. And if you can't sustain yourself, you can't sustain the business. I could only do what I was doing because I had the support of my wife. There's a famous saying that behind every successful man is a woman. In our case, I'd say it a little differently. My wife has never been behind me. She's always been beside me. And at times, she's even ahead of me, carrying parts of this journey that I couldn't have managed alone. Without her, this business would have never been possible. From day one, she had been completely involved in the business, working long hours alongside me. But beyond that, she has made huge sacrifices. Sacrifices that often go unnoticed, but that have made all the difference. And she still continues to make them today. She has been patient and understanding even through the difficult moments. She has been my pillar of support, giving me the space and freedom to focus on the business by ensuring that everything else is taken care of. And even with all of that on her plate, she has still contributed to the business in crucial ways over the years and continue to do so. Take the first 3 to 5 years, for example. We barely saw each other. We were both working in the business, and because it was a 7 a.m. start and an 11 p.m. finish, our schedules were completely out of sync. One of us would be out at the crack of dawn to open up the pharmacy for 7 a.m., while the other was still sleeping. Then at 3 p.m., we'd swap shifts. We'd get just a few minutes together for a quick handover. Sometimes that was the only time we'd see each other all day. By the time the second person finished at 11 p.m. and got home, the other person was already asleep. At the start, we always made it a point to wait up for each other, just to have a few moments together before we could call it a night. But as life evolved and we started having children, that became harder and harder. Suddenly, exhaustion took over and sleep became more of a necessity than waiting up for a conversation. And through all of this, she never once complained. She knew, just like I did, that this was a long-term play, that sacrifices of those early years were building something bigger. And then there are the children. When we talk about sacrifices business owners make, we often focus on our own struggles, the long hours, the financial risks, the stress. But one thing that often gets overlooked is the sacrifices our children make. They may not be running a business, but they feel the impact as much as we do. I've always said that I owe so much to my children. They've given up things they shouldn't have had to. Missed bedtimes, school runs, weekends together. And for me, that's been one of the hardest parts of this journey. There are moments when I look at my children and I realize just how much more I wish I could do with them. How many more moments I'd love to share with them, but simply can't fit it in because of the demands of the business. And that can be really tough. But what makes it even harder is the guilt. That guilt of being physically present at home, but mentally still buried in work. It's something I've struggled with for years. I remember one particular day when I went to pick up our children from school. My youngest was called over and told her parent had arrived. She came to the door, looked up, and to her happy surprise, it was Daddy. She ran straight into my arms, laughing, and asked, "Daddy, what are you doing here?" She genuinely didn't expect to see me there. In that moment, it hit me. I had missed so much without even realizing just how much those little moments meant to them. That was a wake-up call for me. No matter how busy things get, I show up for the big moments. Sports days, Christmas carols, school shows. In fact, I've made a commitment to attend every single Father's Day assembly because I know those moments matter to them. And now I try to fully enjoy every second I get with them because time is the one thing that we cannot get back. Our extended family and friends have also made a lot of sacrifices over the years, and they continue to do so even now. Over the years, there have been multiple weddings, birthdays, and family gatherings that we've had to miss. That's one of the harsh realities of running a business. You can't always be there for the big moments, no matter how much you want to be. But in our case, we've been very fortunate. We've been surrounded by supportive family and friends who have never made us feel guilty for the moments that we couldn't be there. For every event we missed, they understood. And because of that, we've never lost any friends because of the business. If anything, we've been reminded time and again just how blessed we are to have people in our lives who truly want to support us. People often ask what's the hardest emotional part of running a business. And honestly, there are many. But if I had to pick the ones that stand out the most, it would be the stress, the doubts, and the loneliness. The stress of running a business is relentless. It never stops. You lose sleep over finances, staffing issues, and things that are completely out of your control. One minute, everything seems to be going well, and the next, you're hit with a challenge you never saw coming. Then there's the doubt. The moment you start wondering, did I make a mistake? Was this the right decision? Am I on the right track? And the reality is, once you've started, turning back isn't really an option. It gets harder and harder to walk away from. And finally, there's the loneliness. Running a business can feel like a very lonely journey. There's so many things you can't share with other people. You can't share with your staff and sometimes even with family or friends. And that's not because you don't trust them or anything like that, but simply because unless someone has walked this path themselves, they won't fully understand the weight of it. So you might have people that care, but yet still feel lonely. And here's something that time has taught me. You cannot win it all and you can't control everything. The best thing you can do is focus on what you can control and let go of the things that you can't, because if you don't, you'll burn yourself out over problems that were never in your hands to begin with. You can't do everything at the same time, but you can do one thing at a time. And that's the reality of life and business. You just have to pick one thing, tackle it, and keep putting one foot in front of another. And while business can be lonely, I've learned that the best part of running a business is the people. The same people who make it hard sometimes. The customers, the staff, the suppliers are all what makes it all worth it. Honestly, it is all about the people. And in the tough moments, it really helps to have a support system. People who understand exactly what you're going through. I've been fortunate to have a few other pharmacy owners who have played that role for me over the years. Having someone to talk to, vent to, have a rant about your day, a particular experience, and learn from makes all the difference. Because at the end of the day, we're not meant to do this alone. You need other people around you in different ways. Running my own business has been a very interesting journey for me personally, and I think interesting is the exact word to use. It's been full of unexpected twists and turns, challenges I never saw coming, and the moments of growth that I wouldn't trade for anything. I've genuinely enjoyed every part of it. The good, the bad, the highs, the lows. As tough as it has been at times, I have embraced it all. If I could go back, would I still take this path? Yes, absolutely. 100% I would. And the main reason is simple. The lessons have been worth it. They honestly have been. But if I could do it all over again, there are things I would definitely do differently. I would be more intentional about balancing life and business. I would set aside protected time for the things that truly matter. Family, friendship, and moments with my children that become cherished moments. I would have delegated earlier, planned better, and made sure to protect my personal time before it gets swallowed up by the demands of the business. Because at the end of the day, success to me isn't about financial stability or business growth. It really isn't. It's about building something that thrives without consuming my life, helping others succeed, and having that freedom to be present for my family while leaving a lasting legacy. That is what success looks like to me. So if I could give one piece of advice to anyone starting their own business, it would be this. The goal isn't just to work harder, it's to work smarter, to build something that grows without draining you completely. The aim should never be to work in your business, but to work on your business, because in the long run, that's what true success looks like. I know that the reality of running a business is different for each of us. Our experiences, our challenges, and even our reasons for starting are all unique. But I'm curious, what's the one word that sums up what being a business owner means to you? When you think about running a business, what's the first word that comes to mind? What's the word that best describes how it feels or what it will represent to you? If you've ever run a business and made sacrifices for it, I want to hear from you. In one word, sum up what running a business has meant for you. Has it been relentless, sacrifice, loneliness, growth, or in my own case, interesting? Drop your answer in the comments, send me a DM or post it on your story and tag @_BTC podcast. If you have a story about a moment when you realized running a business was harder than expected, share that too. I'd love to hear it. And if you haven't started your own business yet, but dream of doing so one day, what do you think your word will be? What's the one word that captures what you expect this journey to mean for you? Let's get the conversation going. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. I know for a lot of people listening, the reality of running a business can feel overwhelming. You're constantly navigating challenges, whether it's cash flow, staffing, operations, or just making sure the business actually works for you rather than the other way around, you working for the business. That's exactly why I started Dotto Consulting, to help business owners, especially pharmacy contractors, navigate these challenges, make informed decisions, and avoid some of the mistakes I made early on. I've been through it all, starting a business from scratch, struggling with cash flows, scaling up, and even selling branches at some point. And through that experience, I've learned what works and what doesn't. With Dotto Consulting, I help business owners like you find clarity, create sustainable growth, and build a business that doesn't take over your life. So, if you're listening to this and you're facing some of these challenges, or if you're thinking of starting a business but don't know where to begin, let's talk. Whether it's pharmacy-specific advice or just business strategy in general, I'd love to help. You can reach out to me on Instagram @_BTC podcast or send me a DM to learn more about how I can help and book your free 1-hour session with me. I know we've covered a lot in this episode, and if you've made it this far, I truly appreciate you. Thank you very much. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with some key lessons, real practical advice that can help you if you're running a business or thinking about starting one. The first thing I'd say is that you need to define your why. It will keep you going, trust me. Before you start, get really clear on why you're doing this. Is it for impact, for freedom, for financial security? Whatever it may be, your why is what will keep you going when the hard days come. And trust me, they will come. If your only motivation is money, it will not be enough to sustain you through those difficult times. And remember, there are no right or wrong answers to this question. Just define your why. Secondly, understand that freedom takes time. Most people start a business thinking it would get them more freedom, more time with family perhaps, more flexibility. But in reality, you will likely have less freedom in the beginning. Expect to work harder than you ever have, but if you build it right, structure it well, and delegate when the time is right, you can eventually get to a place where your business supports your life instead of consuming it. Thirdly, prepare for financial sacrifices. In the early days, you might not make much or anything at all. If you're getting into business expecting immediate financial rewards, you may be in for a shock. Well, you will be in for a shock. Plan ahead, build a financial buffer, and be prepared for delayed gratification. 4. Protect your mental health. Running a business comes with stress, doubt, and loneliness. You will have nights when you lay awake worrying about payroll, cash flow, or problems you can't control. This is why protecting your mental well-being is crucial. Find ways to switch off. Take time to reset and surround yourself with people who understand the journey. You cannot pour from an empty cup. 5. Don't lose sight of what matters. One of the biggest regrets business owners have when they look back is missing out on life while building their business. Don't wait until later to prioritize family, your friends, and your personal well-being. Success is not just about money. Remember, it's not just about the money you make. It's about creating a life that is balanced and fulfilling. Make time for the things that matter, even if it's just in small ways at first. And finally, build a strong support system. You cannot do this alone. Find a mentor, build relationships with other business owners, and surround yourself with people who truly support you. Having people to lean on, learn from, and grow with will make all the difference on this journey. Thank you for tuning into Behind the Counter Pharmacy and Beyond. I hope this episode has given you real insight into the hard truths of running a business, the sacrifices, the emotional toll, and the reality beyond the success stories. But I also hope it's helped you reflect on your own journey, whether you're already a business owner or planning to take the leap soon. If you've been enjoying Behind the Counter Pharmacy podcast, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share this podcast with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps us grow and reach more people who are on the same journey. And remember, drop your one word in the comments or message me directly. I want to hear what this journey has meant to you. Next time, we're talking about one of the biggest secrets to business success: customer trust and business growth, the secret to scaling up. How do you turn customers into loyal fans? How do you make sure they come to you instead of your competitor? You won't want to miss that one. Until then, remember, the best prescription for success is resilience.